Croeso, this is James, aka JP Harker, coming to you with another video. Today we are looking at The Hunt for Red October by Tom Clancy. And we're going to have a little look at the book and a little comparison with the film. We all know the film Sean Connery and, I was about to say, and Alec Guinness. It's not Alec Guinness, it's Alec Baldwin. And have a little look at what they changed and how the film is different to the book as a result. Now, most of us will be vaguely familiar with this, just in case you're not. Red October is a nuclear submarine, and the book follows CIA analyst Jack Ryan and the commander of Red October, which is Captain Marco Ramius. We discover that the Red October is a Typhoon submarine with a special new kind of engine that allows it to run invisible to sonar. Analyst Jack Ryan, via reports from British intelligence, discovers this, and they discover that Marco Ramius has set sail with Red October with intentions unknown. Reader finds out that Ramius is defecting to the United States, or intends to defect, but the CIA don't know this yet, and so they are afraid that this could be a precursor to a nuclear strike. And that's where the conflict comes in, because there's no communication, and official Russian sources are telling the Americans this fellow is mentally unstable. At least that's what they say in the film. In the books they tend to stick to their cover story of a rescue operation. And the tension, a large part of it, and it is quite well done, the tension, is that it's not a war that we're in. Nobody's willing to shoot first, because whoever shoots first could trigger the one thing we're all trying to avoid. So the Russian subs who are hunting down Red October, hence the name, can't be fired upon by the Americans who are also looking for it, and they can't fire back, but Red October, we don't know what they're up to, and this and that and the other, and it's good. I like it, and especially because we, the reader, know that both Jack Ryan and Marco Ramius have good intentions. And it's that dramatic irony that, come on lads, we want you both to succeed. So that's the central principle anyway. Now, as far as reading the book goes, maybe I have been spoiled by having seen the film first. I found it's nowhere near the pacey thriller that the film was. A part of this, and one of the big differences, is this is packed with technical detail about weapons and military organization generally. There's, you could cut out that much of the book, and it's details of military organization and technology. Now, in 1984, this might well have been a fascinating revelation. To a reader now, it's, well, that's nice. Can we get back to our characters, please? So there's that. They were very sensible in the film to cut back on that and to focus on the characters, focusing hugely on Ryan and Ramius. That is another big difference, book to film, is in the book, and I get why they do it, and it's a good thing for the atmosphere, is there are lots and lots of POVs, lots of them quite short, and the concept is to show that this is a global situation. This isn't just a battle of wits between the Soviet Navy and the CIA and this character and this character. It's affecting a lot of people, and we have lots of short POVs showing all the different things that are happening. There are spies in the government, there's a Russian cook who's been admitted to hospital, and there's an interrogation around him, and there's the Royal Navy's involvement. Now, all of that is good in theory. In practice, when you have multiple POVs, it's difficult to become invested in everybody. And an awful lot of these were just forgettable. It was there almost as pure exposition to say this is what's happening here, rather than this is an interesting character and this is what's happening to them. So that was in my opinion, again, a good thing they did with the film was they stripped it down, even at the expense of the beloved Royal Navy, who were far more important in the book. They've stripped it down and made it Alec Baldwin and Sean Connery. It's about Ramius, it's about Ryan. And I liked that. The patriot in me is a little irked because the film makes it look like this was all the work of the CIA, and actually it was a Royal Navy officer who was the only one who spoke Russian. So HMS Invincible was actually hugely important to this mission. But if it comes at the expense of a good story, I am willing to set that aside and allow the Americans to claim credit for things. But there we go. The other thing that I found odd about this book, and that was mercifully not an issue in the film, was what I am now coming to call Ivanhoe syndrome, and I'm hoping I don't see it very often. And that's, for a big chunk of this book, Ryan isn't in it. He's, in the middle of his other mission. And for a book that is a Jack Ryan adventure, that's odd. And it made me think of Walter Scott's Ivanhoe, where Ivanhoe gets injured in a tournament, sort of late on in the first act, early second act, and is just vanished until near the end because he's healing. And for a book that's called Ivanhoe, that struck me as strange. And for a book that's ostensibly about Ryan, for him to disappear for a hefty chunk of it, that struck me as strange. And we had all these other POVs that I wasn't all that invested in. So yeah, I'm glad they got rid of that in the film. Replacing the president with a senator for the film, well, doesn't really make any difference. I mean, it kind of shows that it's nationally important in this, but I don't think it added anything or took anything away from the story when they did that in the film, so I'm not going to comment on that. Another thing that's in the book and not in the film that I think is probably for the best is we have, at one point, some Russian sailors are on a US submarine with Jonesy, the sonar operator, and it's very patronising. It's 1984, it's Cold War, the wall is still up, I get it. But it's very patronising to the Russians, who are like children. They're fascinated by, you have films, you have education, you are paid well, and you kind of want to cringe reading it, because it's such a poster for the American life and the American dream. And yeah, that was wisely left out of the film, and I didn't much like reading it in the book, because if I'd read it at the time, then maybe, but reading it now, you think, these people are adults. Yes, they're being held in ignorance by a corrupt government, but they're not going to be like wide-eyed children watching this television screen with awe because there's a film on. And yeah, the film did not suffer by leaving that bit out. And apart from that, yeah, I think I've covered pretty much everything that was removed from the film. They didn't really add much except for the helicopter stunt. And the attitude of Ramius. I did make a note here. And that, I can't decide if it's good or bad, because it's ostensibly good. Ramius's motivations in the book are largely he is disillusioned with the Soviet Union. He is himself Lithuanian, not Russian, and his wife recently died due to the incompetence of a Soviet doctor. But that doctor was untouchable because he had friends who were high up in the party. So Ramius is acting the way he's acting because of his disillusionment with a corrupt government. And that's fine as a motivation. In the film, they've sort of just made him a pacifist and said, his line is, he sees the ship, he knows that it's there to achieve one aim, and that's to launch nuclear weapons, so he's going to leave. And I thought, that works well in the film, we sympathise with him as a pacifist. But if you've been a submarine commander for most of your life, and you are the senior submarine commander, and you've sailed nuclear vessels, this isn't Star Trek, nuclear vessels before, you know that that's what they're there for. And it just seemed odd that this was his change of heart. Forgive me, I'm still getting over a cold. So I'm not sure if that motivation change is a good thing or a bad thing. It makes sense for the film. I didn't feel that the film was, a shallow film for it, but there was a little bit more to his motivation in this, and that's one of the reasons I'm glad I've read the book, that to give it a little bit of context. So, yes, if you are a fan of the film, I would recommend reading this book. You'll probably come to some of the same conclusions I did, which is, it's a bit larger than it needs to be. But at the same time, it's interesting to see the context around the events. It is interesting to see the involvement of the Royal Navy. It is interesting to see the mystery around the Russian cook. So, I won't say it's bad, even though I've talked up the film a lot, and I've talked up how the film made a lot of good choices in what it left out. I'd still recommend having a go, because it is always interesting to see those extra little facets, and you might think they're a good thing, and that they add something to the reading experience. For me, I thought it didn't add a great deal, but it was enough that I felt it was worthwhile reading it. I didn't feel like I'd wasted my time and thought, I'll just watch the film. So, I would say, have a go at this, The Hunt for Red October, if you have the time and the patience for a lot of techie detail, because it may surprise you. I think that's about as much as I can say about this book, and as usual, I've slightly rambled towards the end of my video. I have a habit of doing that, I'm afraid, and I am trying to break it. So we shall see. I'm going to stop saying, so we shall see, and so at the end. Because one of these days, I'll be able to end videos cleanly. Hunt for Red October. That is the end of the video. This is James, aka JP Harker. Will Vowed.